Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Poetry Thursday, little informal BookTube tradition where a few channels talk about poetry on Thursday. Well, after all these years and all these new voices added to BookTube, poetry is still pretty underrepresented on the platform. Not everybody comments on the poetry that they're reading. I sometimes do. It's hard for me to even say my name without commenting on it. And my Poetry Thursday has, of course, because it's this channel, devolved into a psychodrama. I am reading my way through this book, 20th Century American Poetry. Big fat anthology that I found, I think, last year. Really, really enjoy it. I really like how it's put together. And we are up to the Harlem Renaissance. In fact, we are leaving the Harlem Renaissance today. We're reading the last of our poets for the Harlem Renaissance before we move on to a whole new territory. And the poet that we're reading today is Countee Cullen. But the introduction to this poet tells me that his name is Countee. Countee Cullen. I did not know that. Before I read this introduction, I did not know that. My own poetry training, my own poetry instruction in any kind of academia has been just about as underrepresented as it is on BookTube. And I also think it's a little bit fruitless that I do know, because I doubt I'm ever going to do that. I doubt I'm ever going to remember to call this person Countee Cullen. I doubt I am. I'll try. But what we have here is another Harlem Renaissance figure that cuts from the same cloth as a lot of the others that we've seen. In other words, someone who rejected the label of being a so-called Negro poet, who said, no, Harlem Renaissance, okay, some of these people are my friends, I like a lot of their writing, but I don't want to be pigeonholed. There's an interesting cross-current there. I'd love to see a big new narrative history, big 1,000-page narrative history of the Harlem Renaissance. Not little tangential studies and not biographies like we got of Alan Locke a few years ago, but a big study called the Harlem Renaissance. That would be really good to see. And I'm sure that a person who studied that would look at that cross-current, that oddly cross-grained current in some of these poets. You can see what I mean about commentary. I'm commenting before I even get to the poems. I want to read you two of this author's poems, because they show they don't show the breadth of his poetry. His poetry is remarkably varied, but they do show some of the different things he could do. He's a very formal poet, very metrical, very rhythmical. None of the rhetorical experimentation that we have seen a little bit of, and that, oh my, is coming to us like an oncoming freight train. So I want to read you two of his poems to wrap this out. One of them is one of my favorite poems from the Harlem Renaissance, so I'll finish up with that one. First we'll read Yet Do I Marvel, which is from 1925. Both the poems I'm going to read to you are from 1925. This is called Yet Do I Marvel. I doubt not God is good, well-meaning, kind, and did he stoop to quibble, could tell why a little buried mole continues blind, why flesh that mirrors him must someday die. Make plain the reason tortured Tantalus is baited by the fickle fruit, declare, if merely brute caprice dooms Sisyphus to struggle up a never-ending stair. Inscrutable his ways are, and immune to catechism, by a mind too strewn with petty cares to slightly understand what awful brain compels his awful hand. Yet do I marvel at this curious thing, to make a poet black and bid him sing. See what I mean? First of all, that wonderful, muscular, sinuous nature where the rhymes are pulling you on, even when there are periods, even when there are full stops. The rhymes are pulling you on. The end rhymes are. And that wonderful couplet at the end to really nail the whole thing. That all these tortures that the narrator of the poem has been talking about, in implication, are nothing compared to being a black man and being compelled to poetry. We've seen that note struck by other black poets before. They will bring up the idea that they have the inspiration and are often denied the tools or the social acceptance. That note in prose is struck by Frederick Douglass before any of them. But then we have my favorite, Countee Cullen poem, one that I've read many, many times, even though nowadays it has the objectionable word, it has the nuclear word, the word you're not supposed to use. I've never agreed with that. I've never agreed with the self-censorship that goes along with it, but I have read this poem on this channel a few times without having you all faint. And it's beautiful and harrowing. You need that word in this poem. It's called Incident. Once riding in old Baltimore, heart-filled, head-filled with glee, I saw a Baltimorean keep looking straight at me. Now I was 8 and very small, and he was no whit bigger. So I smiled, but he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore, from May until December. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. That's incredible. And if you could see this on the page, you will see that the whole poem stops dead on that horrible word, which has a horrible effect. Who knows how old the narrator of the poem is? And you know that it's not only the only thing he remembers from traveling in old Baltimore, but that it's stuck with him his whole life. And why? Because the little boy, the little Baltimorean that pokes out a finger and says that horrible word is no older than the narrator. He's already learning to hate. It's I think amazingly good. Just an amazing poem. It is brief. It's a ditty. You notice it has the kind of Hallmark card rhythm to it, but it leaves you no place to hide. None at all. And I love it. And I think it makes a good note on which to end the section of this book on the Harlem Renaissance. So we're going to end that section, and we're going to move on to a title ominously called Modern Alternatives. Fortunately, the subtitle gives little hope: Romantics and Neoclassicists. And I can guess, I haven't looked ahead, but I can guess that this section of the book is going to contain some poets I really like. And some poets that I have not really paid much attention to, so it'll be good. It'll be good. It takes us into the modern era. It takes us away from 1925. It brings us closer and closer to that baleful year, 1959. We're eventually going to get there, but we're not there yet. And I don't think we're going to be there in this next section. So let's hope. Let's hope for the best. Although I know for a fact that some of the poets in this next section lived into my own lifetime. Well into my own lifetime. So we'll see. We'll see what we encounter. I don't think the turning point of 20th century American poetry is in this next section. So we're freed from it for a little while longer. But that's Poetry Thursday for today. I will wrap this up. I urge you to read Incident again on your own. And I'll be back next Thursday. Thank you, BookTube.